So let's take a look at the if statement in practice as we would use it. So some examples of if that I want to show you today are a non-empty string and is an option selected, and then checking for all fields being complete, looking at password length, and a little problem called do I have enough fuel? So let's take a look at those and see what we're doing. So the first one here is printing a non-empty string. And if I open that up as a preview here, you can see that I've got an input box and I've got a button that says check input. And I've got a div here that right now is empty, but it's assigned the ID answer. Of course, I've got variables set up to refer to those things. But here is my if statement in practice. So it says if my input dot value, okay, that is the expression, and the code that runs if this is true is answer dot intertext equals my input dot value. So basically it is saying if this is a non-empty string, meaning if it contains anything, including a space character, then it's going to print that inside this answer div. So let's check that. Okay, so right now it's empty. There's nothing in there. If I check input, we get nothing. If I type something there, and I check input, then it will print that string there. Now, I can change that anytime I want, but if I delete that, if I go back to a non-empty string, what you'll notice is if I check input, nothing happens. And the reason nothing happens is because Dave is the current value, the current thing that's inside this div here. And if when I click that button, if my input value is an empty string, then it's not going to do anything to the inner text here. It only works if, let's say, I have a space in there, then it's a non-empty string. And of course, I can't see the space, but it's there. Okay, so that's the first example. That's the first example of a if statement in practice. Let's take another look at a different angle here. So again, we've got an option selected, and my options, you can see here, have values of an empty string, a string that says hello, and a string that says goodbye. And again, I'm using my input.value and changing the inner text if something is selected that is a non-empty option. So when I click on check input, if I haven't selected anything, it appears to do nothing. And that's just because when this is empty, it's not going to do anything. So if I choose hello, check input, it'll print that string. And it's just using my input value, printing it directly here. So if I say goodbye, then of course it says goodbye. And now I can't empty this string because if I do this, go back to the empty or the non-option, note that it skips this, it doesn't do anything. So if I run this subsequently, all I can do is switch between hello and goodbye. Let's take a look at this third example. And this one has a couple of fields, username and password, and they are regular text fields. Normally I would have this be a password type field, but I don't really care what's in there this time. But what I want to see here is if these are empty, then it's going to say you must fill out a username and password. So instead of just saying, is this empty, what I'm saying is, if this is empty, by saying if this value is not there, right, by putting the exclamation point. And this one is not there. So if password value doesn't exist, or if it's negative or empty, then if either one of these, so because this is or, I have the two pipe characters next to each other in the middle there, which says if this is empty or if this is empty. If either one is empty, it'll say you must fill out the username and password. So this is kind of approaching a real world scenario. So if I have Bill and password and I check input, it doesn't do anything because it's not supposed to, because I filled out both fields. Now, if one of those fields is empty, it'll say you must fill out username and password. So that's a way using multiple fields and the Boolean or operator, as well as the not operators, to say if username is empty or if password is empty, then give that message that says you must fill out. Okay, so that's a really basic sort of form validation that you can use, and you could actually string together every field in a form into one if statement that says you have to fill out everything. So that's something that kind of on a basic level what you might use for form validation. Another thing you might do when you're evaluating whether somebody filled out something is you might want to check to see if a password is long enough. So I've got a password field and a check input, and instead of just checking to see if it's empty or non-empty this time, I'm actually using password.value.length, which will return an integer representing how many characters were typed in that field. And if that is less than 5, it says your password is too short. So again, if I type password, we know that's long enough. If I check the input, it doesn't do anything because it's not supposed to. But if the password is too short, let's say only 4 characters, then it'll say your password is too short. So in this case, if the password value length is less than 5, then this becomes true, and what happens is it prints that statement to that div. Okay, so let's look at one more. And on this last one, what we've got is let's say we're on a trip, and we say, how many gallons does my car have left, and how many miles do I have left in my trip? Do I have enough gas to get to where I'm going? And if my car gets 25 miles to the gallon, and I have a certain number of miles, I can calculate how many gallons, or if I have enough to make it. And so I've done something different this time. And the answer div is hidden, but it already says, I think you have enough gas. Now you can see this if I take that style and I change the display to block and I save it, it's preloaded with I think you have enough gas. But since I'm going to hide it, you can't see that there. So right now it says I think you have enough gas, but it's hidden. And so what happens here is in this formula, in my expression, okay, now I can see the whole thing. It says if miles.value, so how many miles in here, changed to a number, is greater than the number of gallons changed to a number and then multiplied by 25. So if the miles is more than I will get out of my current level of gas, then this evaluates to true, and the answer text said it gets changed to you should get some gas, and then finally the answer style display is equal to block. So let's try this out. So if I have 10 gallons, and that means I have 10 times 25 miles left in my car, so 250, and let's say the trip is 300 miles long. I choose can I make it, and it says you should get some gas. Now if I if I change that to I have 20 gallons left times 25, that's 500 miles in my tank. Can I make it? I can't switch back, right? Because there's no mechanism for that. We're going to add something to this in just a little bit that's going to fix that. But right now, let's reset it. Okay, so reset that page, and I go 20, and I have, let's say, 300 miles to go. I think you have enough gas because 20 times 25 is 500, 300 miles left. Now, interestingly enough, because of the way this is structured, I can go back and hit 10 here and choose can I make it, and it should say you should get some gas. It's just that once it says this, you'll notice there's no mechanism here that changes it back. So that's kind of an incomplete program, which is something we're going to take care of really soon.